I don't think I slept for the 4 years that I was in school. A lot of all-nighters, a lot of caffeine, a lot of sugar. Some of the most prolific work I ever made was during school time.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You are tuned into the creative frequency. Come with us as we explore the creative process with artists from all areas of the creative spectrum. The creative frequency starts now. Hi, and thank you for tuning into the creative frequency. I'm your host, Kent Tarbox. In this episode, like we do in every episode, we're going to be discussing the various aspects of creativity. Our guests are going to share their experiences with us. They're going to talk about inspiration, roadblocks, imposter syndrome, all the aspects of creativity and what it takes to produce art. Our discussions are all over the place sometimes. So as I knew, and as I always do when I start these shows, we dive right in. So I'd like to introduce you to our guest today, Miquela Monday. Miquela, tell us about yourself.
Hi, so thank you for that, Kent. Um, I'm from Fostoria, Ohio, so really small town, but local to the Findlay Art League, which is where we've had the opportunity to meet. But I'm 23 currently. Last spring, I graduated with my BFA from Bowling Green State University. For my focus for my major was studio drawing and painting, but I am more mixed media, kind of all over the place. I don't typically tether myself down to one medium. I'm kind of, if it has pigment, I'm going to use it, whether that's ashes from a fire pit or sidewalk chalk or any paint that was on sale at the store. But currently, I'm working on really large scale landscape paintings. I'm tying up my current series now that will be on display at the Findlay Art League for the month of October. My solo show is coming up. But when I was in school, I focused on a lot of different things. A lot of art school is just finding the way that you want to work, different things that are important to you, getting through the monotony of what all of your professors want you to do, um, and typically making a lot of work out of spite. I found myself in college making a lot of work against people's advice just because I wanted to. Um, and towards the end, sorry,
Go ahead.
uh, towards the end, I was doing a lot of figurative work, large scale 6 by 9 feet figurative work of volunteer models. And we were discussing like body dysmorphia issues, gender identity issues. And one of the reasons I wanted to pursue that is because I myself had struggled with a lot of those issues for a really long time. And I had used art as a way to like caveat some of those problems and give myself like this artist eye of what the body looks like so you can have more of this positive image of yourself to reflect on every day to kind of boost your self-esteem. And I wanted to give
Okay.
other people the opportunity for that. So I started putting out a call for volunteer models. And I ended up with 8 models throughout a 2-year period for school, that we worked together to discuss some of the things that they were struggling with and kind of wanted to work through to have a better relationship with themselves. And it was a very therapeutic and really eye-opening time that kind of just talked about like the human condition. And at the end of those paintings, after my BFA show, those were all gifted back to the models. So that way, every day they'll be able to see
Okay.
this painting of themselves to kind of boost themselves up a little bit. But other than that, I'm kind of all over the place.
I, I want people to know I've met Miquela several times, and she used a word the other day, and I think it applies, and I think you're going to hear it, is chaos. She said her mind is just constantly chaos, and
Absolutely.
absolutely. You bring up several interesting points, and I want to talk about a couple of them. Real quick, when did you discover art? When did you think in your life, what age would that, like, this is what I need to do?
So there was never really a time where art wasn't a prevalent part of my life, even from like toddler and childhood age. I had a lot of family issues going on all of the time, and I always used art as a way to escape those problems. And it was It has always been a therapeutic outlet for me. I've always made art for myself, and if other people find enjoyment in it, that's awesome, but I don't really create art for other people. Like, throughout childhood and elementary school, I would sit down and just doodle and sketch and draw all day. I used to get in trouble in school a lot for it. I was a 4.0 student. I was always really well. I always participated well when it came to education, but I always had to be busy. So I was always sketching on the side of the paper, never taking notes when I was supposed to. And as I got older, teachers realized, well, she'll get her stuff done. She knows what, she's doing for the most part. We're just going to let her sketch. Um, and that honestly kind of having those teachers give me that outlet and that space to do that and practice over and over again, it kind of just pushed me in the direction of creating art. Not full time, because I do have a full time job, but I couldn't imagine a day in my life where I'm not doing something as a creative outlet. And I never envisioned going to school either for it. Like, I never wanted to go to art school. I graduated high school at like sixth in my class, but I never wanted to go to college. I didn't care to. But my high school art teacher, who is much like a mom to me, she is over my shoulder all of the time. She dragged me into her office one day and she said, "You're going to art school. End of story. I'm not going to allow you to throw your life away. You're going. Even if I have to pay for your application fees. If I have to sit down with you every day, you are putting in these applications." And I eventually did. I was like, okay, I'll apply to 3 schools, whatever. And I applied to the school that her husband taught at. He teaches at Heidelberg. And I got in there, but then I toured Heidelberg, Cincinnati, and Bowling Green. And I have a lot of familial responsibilities. So Bowling Green offered some of the things that I would have considered interesting at the time, and locationally, like, it was not any closer to me than Tiffin, but I was really kind of drawn into it when I got there. So I did end up going to Bowling Green for 4 years, and I would say in my time spent there, it wasn't so much about the education that I got, but more of the connections that I made. Because that's pretty much all the art world is who do you know, who has a gallery, where can you show at, what small doors open for a small amount of time. Um,
That seems to be a lot of people's experience. And I hear this from the 3 other people I've interviewed so far, because we're in the infancy of this show. And everyone has said the same thing. They say, I just have always drawn, I've always painted. Alan, for example, the last guest, he's like, I picked up a camera and it was like, that was it. And I'm a photographer, and I had that same feeling. You picked up a camera, it
mhm.
just felt right. I like what you said there. Well, I was the same kind of student that you were. High school was boring. It was
Yep.
terrible. And even to this day, my wife can sit down and if she looks at any of my notebooks from college, and I took the scenic route through college. I worked and then I went on the weekends, and there are virtually no notes, but the
Yeah.
margins are nothing but doodles. And it's not that I can draw, but I would do little geometric shapes, or I'm just always doing something.
Yeah, little page fillers.
Yeah, just kept my mind going because it's class. It's like, okay, I got it. Let's go. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I like something you said about creating art out of spite.
Yeah.
I think every artist and every creative, and I lump creatives as like any number of things, any various form. There's a little bit of a rebel attitude, or a little bit of a screw. I'm doing it my way. I
Mhm.
don't care what you think. And I've often spent, and I want to ask your opinion on this. I spend a lot of time. I watch my wife and I watch a lot of art shows and things about art. And right now we're watching a glass blowing series on Netflix. And sometimes when they get done and they judge these people, I think, what gives you the right?
Right.
You know, um, I like. Did you think you created better art out of spite? Did anger help you, or was it just a release? And it was just, I'm doing it my way regardless.
I have a lot of respect for my professors. I'm gonna start with that. I do. And that's their job, is to be there and question you
Sure.
and to push you farther.
Sure.
But on the days where you're working full time at your other job, working 50 hours a week, and then this person at 8 a.m. is telling you everything that you're doing is wrong and that you should be doing it somewhere or some way else, uh, you get kind of angry because because they expect you to spend 20 hours a week per class outside of class time doing these things. I don't think I slept for the 4 years that I was in school. A lot of all-nighters, a lot of caffeine, a lot of sugar. Some of the most prolific work I ever made was during school time. I mean, I struggle now that I'm away from that to find a time to get it into my routine and to get it into my schedule. Even though now that I'm not in school anymore, you'd think I would have ample amount more time, but the fear of deadlines isn't driving me anymore. Um,
Right.
but there were a couple professors that I went rounds for rounds for, and Bowling Green doesn't have a plethora of professors anymore, so you're generally used to being with the same people a lot of the time.
Right.
And I'm not gonna call out any of my professors, but
I wouldn't ask you to.
yeah, there were some where I was thinking that I was making this really emotional release kind of work for myself, and then I would show up to critique, and they would be like, "Yeah, I know you're not done yet, but this isn't going the way that you want it to. You should just restart. Or maybe this isn't the direction that's working for you, and maybe you should go do this over here." And I kind of just got tired of being shut down all the time. So I was like, well, screw it. I'm just gonna keep doing what feels right for me. And all of the work that I created that was generally shut down by my professors is all of the work that I've sold now
Right.
or marketed or was my most positive feedback work when I'm in shows. So there is kind of like a double standard in like the act of all art being subjective. Like, how are those people, even though they're deemed to be these professors that are supposed to be training the new generation of artists, why is it their opinion that matters what these students do all the time? Like, yeah, they should have course guidelines, but we shouldn't be nothing in art should be putting people into a box. It should always be what color are we going to make the box on the outside. Um,
I think
but
it's interesting. Go ahead.
no, but I am still eternally grateful for some of the professors that I have lifelong connections with still. There are definitely things that I would not change.
I think when you're and we have an age disparity here, and you're 23 and I'm 64.
A little bit.
Yeah, and there's a lot of mileage between your age and my age. And I think I think when you're coming up through that, your world's changing, you're questioning yourself,
Hmm.
you're throwing yourself into this. And then somebody like me maybe even looks at it and goes, what are you thinking here? What are you
Yeah.
doing? And I don't know. And I don't always appreciate that either. And I don't appreciate it now sometimes at my age. And somebody will say like, well, I don't know why you did that. Well, I've reached an age though where it's like, I guess I really don't care what you think.
I
Um,
I truly don't
and
either
but I'm not
anymore.
trying to get a grade. And that, and I always thought, and I never took a photography class in my life. I want everybody to understand my degree is in systems analysis and I've got an MBA. Has
Yeah.
absolutely nothing to do with art. Okay. So I never had anybody really critiquing my work for a grade. I've had pictures juried out of shows. Okay. And I guess that was like, well, there's a judgment. And I'm going to lead into this. And then I finally, and people probably get tired of hearing of this, I had a best of show couple of shows ago up at the Findlay Art League, and so did you. And I want to ask you, at the ripe old age of 23, nailing a best of show, what did that do for your confidence? Hey, it's your host, Kent Tarbox, and I'm here to ask you one question. Are you looking to unleash your creativity? Looking for a place to show your work, meet other artists, and be part of the art community in Findlay? Why don't you think about joining the Findlay Art League? Whether you're a beginner, a seasoned artist, we welcome you all. So take a minute, visit FindlayArtLeague.org to learn more and get involved. Let's make art happen together.
Well, it was more of because I made that oil painting. It was one of the first oil paintings I had ever made in class. So I think I
Okay.
got a C on that painting.
Okay.
Um, so when I was thinking about it, like when I got the award, it's like a moment of kind of stun anyway. But it's like, and me and the juror of that show had a really long conversation about the way that art gets viewed and generationally the differences about how we approach our art. And like I said earlier, I don't really make art for anybody else. So when I get a bad
Mm-hmm.
criticism, I don't really take it to heart anyways because
Right.
I'm not making it for your pleasure anyway. I mean, I was overjoyed to get that award in that show. I really was. Financially, it helped out quite a bit anyway.
Yeah, it does.
But it also kind of upset me in a way because I don't feel like that's my best work. It is definitely one of my stronger pieces, like if you put my whole collection together, because I feel like I'm a stronger oil painter and drawer, but those are just not mediums that I gravitate towards wanting to do.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason that it kind of frustrated me is when I was getting out of art school and the whole time I was there. Granted, I got there at a really weird time. I started college at 2020, so COVID had just started. You know, we were all separated. We couldn't have all of the class together in the same room, and a lot of things just changed as a at an academic level. But by the time I graduated school, the whole culture of the school had shifted and it was already on a decline anyways. But everything is switching kind of to the digital realm,
Mm-hmm.
which it's going to happen. It's inevitable and it's becoming more and more prevalent as the days go on. But it kind of upset me that in my view, is not even close to being my high priority work and it got best of show. And then I would compare it to some of the other things in my head that were going on at the school at the time. There's hardly any painting and drawing classes anymore. It is all a digital takeover, and students aren't being forced to learn traditional media anymore. So I feel a lot of the digital work that's being created isn't to the standard that it should be. So because people aren't learning how to build composition and how to achieve like richness in compositions. So like color values and things like that. All of the digital work that is just being pushed out over and over again is kind of just being this flat regurgitated imagery over and over again. And I feel like it's kind of pulling the art world down a little bit. And I wish there was still a higher emphasis on drawing and painting and learning the tactile media first. And then I get a lot of people looking at me the wrong way when I say this, and I understand why it's kind of an outlandish comment, but man, hold on. I want to not sound rude. Let me
That's okay.
rework that statement in my head.
That's okay.
A lot of these students, and I'm referring to students since I created that work when I was in college. A lot of the digital artists that were there, they have an erase button.
Mm-hmm.
Painters don't. You can
Mm-hmm.
paint over it again, but if you're, you know, realism painter and everything is in the fine details and glazing and stuff like that, you can't just slap on a thick layer of paint and call it a day to cover it up. So I feel like if there's a digital shift happening, the quality of digital work needs to be enhanced. Because they have all of these tools that can kind of make for easier work to create more depth, if that makes sense. And I just
It
don't see it being utilized.
well, it does because you're talking to a photographer, and we've had this massive shift. I learned how to develop film in the 70s when I was in high school, and I did black and white, and I shot on film for years and years and years, years and years.
I loved it.
See, and
Yeah.
now, and I live in the digital world. Okay, I photograph digitally. Because I contract for publications and things. It's a
Hmm.
digital world. I got to get an image to them. I got to do this. I got to do that. And that's in the realm of my photojournalism background. That I've been a contract freelance photojournalist for 25 years. And when it comes to being creative, okay, even in the photography world, it's the same thing. I can go out and take a picture, but my God, the stuff you can do in Photoshop. Okay, you can add sun, you can add shadows, you can do this, you can do stuff that wasn't even there.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I'm not taking anything, and I'm a little jealous of it because I don't know how to do any of that stuff in Photoshop. Okay.
I know. I would be useless.
But I don't want to. And I'm not taking away, and yeah, I'm gonna piss a few people off on this show, I'm sure, over time. Um, I, I just, I think it diminishes. It makes it very easy. Everyone's a photographer now because we all have a phone and we all have a camera. Everybody can do video. And one of my other guests, Kalen Flutterjohn, and I don't know if you know Kalen or not from the Finley
I
Art
don't
League.
believe so.
We talk about this a lot, and he's going to come back on. We're going to do a whole show on this, that there's so much art being just shoved out there, so many photos, that it diminishes the one photo or two photos. Like, God, that's a really good photo. People just want to scroll up on Instagram or whatever and go, what's next? What's next?
Yep.
And I think what your statement says a lot about that too is I can just crank this stuff out. I don't have to know. And I get it. And that's a little scary. But yeah, I also see too, though, I see people your age, people a lot younger, they're buying vinyl records. They think vinyl records are the coolest thing in the world. And maybe they are. I grew up with them. And I'm like, okay, fine, sure. Been there, done that. Same with film. You're seeing a lot of young people. And I don't know if it's just because they didn't have it and to them it's new. And it's a different medium. It might be a little rebellion against, hey, everybody's got a digital camera. Look at me, I'm doing film. So I guess maybe if you stick around long enough, it all comes back around. But I fully understand what you're saying, that if you don't have a fundamental, maybe if you don't understand it, I think the quality of the work can lack. And right there, I've just become judgmental. I've become a professor, and
Right.
I can say, oh yeah,
And that goes back to the subjectivity of art. Like, who are we to be those
right.
people?
Because some people are really good at this stuff. Some people can really do this stuff. And I won't take anything away from it. I think it needs to be identified though for what it is. Okay. If it's digital art, I want to know that. I want to know if it was put together on a MacBook or on an iPad or something. If it's, if it's oil, I want to see an oil painting. And I think it's always going to be there. And I think you're going through the same evolution we all are when it comes to art, because it gets very blurry sometimes anymore. With your inspiration, is there a place, is there something everybody I talk to, especially the painters and that, they're like nature. Oh, I go out in nature. I get inspiration from nature. I'm nature. Are you, see, again, this nature's a theme.
I love to frolic in the woods.
Okay.
I have a nature preserve park that's across the street of my house, and I come from a very small town, right?
I'm from the same town.
Are you?
Yeah, I grew up in Fostoria. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's hardly anything for anyone to do, especially younger people now. But so I go to Portage Park all the time, which used to be a dump. So it used to be a dumping site for all of the industries. So the riverbed, the Portage River that runs through Bowling Green and all over Ohio, our part is so polluted. You could go down to the riverbed and pick up nothing but spark plugs. And
right.
And that's not a thing that many people from here know. Like, if they're just taking a casual walk through the park, they're not going to notice. But I spend a lot of time there because it's my only place that I can go to escape all of the chaos that's running around me at all times. It's just a quiet space. And I feel the most at peace and reserved with myself when I'm standing in the middle of the woods or playing down in the river or foraging for mushrooms. It's the only time that my brain is quiet and I'm not thinking about my dishes not being done and who I'm going to have to go take care of, or that I have to be at work in the next 8 hours.
Right.
And just to hop back real quick, so I might have a little bit of insight as to why maybe people my age are being so drawn to like the vinyl records and the film cameras and things like that. I have a radio in every room of the house. I don't watch TV. I don't. I still scroll on my phone. I get sucked into it all the time. I try not to.
Right. We all doom scroll. Yes.
Yeah, it gets bad sometimes. But I think because we grew up with nothing but technology being shoved in our faces all the time, I think as now that we're reaching adults, we're realizing that we have the attention span of goldfish because everything's been so fleeting all of the time in our
Right.
lives. The TV, we can't even sit through 30 seconds worth of commercials anymore without having a panic. So I think at some point we just start being overwhelmed by all of the fast-paced media being thrown at us all the time that we're trying to find these little moments of solace. Um, like I listen to CDs in the car just so I don't have to have this repetition of things going on all the time. Just to give me more of a quiet moment. Everybody might not feel that way, but like I just bought a stereo system from the late 80s over the weekend at a garage sale for $5 so I can continue to play my cassettes that have been in my 90s car that I don't otherwise get the opportunity to. But yeah, I think it's just a moment of quiet that we're able to put ourselves in the place to allow our brain to start flowing more creatively. Like when I start thinking about things for my paintings, it's usually when I'm in the woods or when I'm driving to work passing nothing but cornfields. Um, just in those quiet moments where life isn't going as fast.
Right. Having grown up in the 80s, out of high school in the 70s, I do have news for you. You got a bargain because your $5
Oh,
stereo
I
was
know.
probably $500 in the 80s.
Yeah,
And
it
so good
is.
on you. That's great. And I find I find the thing interesting. I get people that ask me, they're like, "Oh, are you going to shoot film?" No, I just, no. And I don't care if people do. I really
Yeah,
don't. I knock yourself out. I see people run around Polaroids, cracks me up. I grew up, everybody, when I was growing up, everybody, a Polaroid was a big deal.
yeah,
And I've told people before on this show, I had a camera. I graduated in 1979. Tells you how old I am. And if the 35 millimeter camera had a Nikon FM2, I couldn't play a guitar. I wasn't a musician. So having a camera was the next best thing to being a musician in high school because it was a big deal because not that many people had them because they were expensive. You had to know how to use them.
hmm
And again, today it's, I'm going to go do an assignment tonight where I'm going to go photograph a volleyball game and I'm going to look up in the stands and every kid up there in the stands is going to be on a camera, on a phone.
yeah,
I don't know what they're doing. I don't care. I see the back of more phones than I do people's faces. I guess that's a whole other show. Maybe we could dive into that, but I don't want to get into that here. I do want to ask you. So you get your inspiration from nature. You get the break. You get all of that. How do you overcome? What happens to you when you hit a roadblock? Do you hit roadblocks where you can't put anything down on paper or canvas? What do you do?
I most definitely do hit roadblocks. Just in my personal life, I'm typically going 500 miles an hour, and it's just easy for me to get overwhelmed. So even if I'm not in a brain space where I feel like I can sit down and paint, or nothing productive is going to come down or come out when I go to sit and work on a painting, because it definitely does happen. I mean, there's been plenty of days where I'll sit in my chair and just stare at a painting for 3 hours because I want to work on it. I just physically cannot get myself to. So I've kind of made a deal with myself. If I can't find the brain capacity to sit down and work on a piece that day, I have to be productive in my art space somehow, even if that's sweeping the floors, organizing my paint, cleaning my brushes. I have to do something that is going to help me in my art process later on when I finally snap back into the creative mood where I feel like I can continue.
Okay. You mentioned when you're sitting in your chair, and I think now is a great time for those of you that are seeing this on the video. I had to comment when
Yeah.
we first started that she's got the coolest chair in her studio, and I hope you can see it on the frame. and
Do you
she
want me
explained
to
it to
try
me.
to
It's a
move around a
dental.
little bit?
Yeah, let's see
Yeah.
if we can see
Okay.
you moving around in your chair.
So I can adjust the camera a little bit. So as you were saying, this is a dentistry chair. I picked it up at a garage sale for $1. It fully spins, it's on casters, it's incredibly sturdy. I have the matching stool too. And then when somebody's sitting in it, this whole top can spin, so I use it as my armrest when I'm balancing and trying to work on a painting sometimes. Sorry if that was an awful camera view. I can't see where I'm going.
No, that's okay. And if anybody, if you're just listening, and so I'm going to do the best I can to describe it. We've all been to a dentist, at least I hope so. And it looks like that chair that they sit on next to you when you're doing the teeth cleaning, and the little arm folds around in front of them, and it looks like it's very comfortable.
It is. I
And
took this to
and
school with me, so I would wheel this from classroom to classroom, and I would get so much slack for it all the time, but I could not stand to sit in those little plastic chairs they have. I have some like
right,
spinal issues and stuff like that. I could not do it. So like this allows me the freedom to be able to like lean back and kind of just
right.
relax a little bit. Or if I'm like writing notes, or I used to take it to my drawing class and like affix my clipboard here so I could sit and like draw my models and stuff like that. But I'm in love with this chair.
Well,
And
and I think it's great that you shared it. And I know somebody's going to think, "Oh my God, they're on a show talking about creativity and they're discussing a chair."
it's part of my
But
process.
it's part of your process, and I love that. I finding out we all have something
Hmm.
somewhere that we work with, that's with us, that we work with or whatever. Um, and the chair was I love the chair. I'm all about comfort when I'm sitting somewhere
Hmm.
doing something. And as a photographer, sometimes I get to sit, sometimes I don't. It
Right.
doesn't matter to me. But and if I see another one of those, I'll pick it up for you, and you can
Oh,
have a
yeah,
matching pair.
you
Yeah.
should. It's also my favorite color. But I went to go buy me a set of
Oh,
these because
okay.
I was like, oh, they can't be that expensive. No, they are. Like to get a newly made one
No,
now, they're like $700. I was like, that's insane. No, the poor college student could never.
I wished I could have seen. I would. I have a vision in my head of you wheeling this chair around campus. That is
Well,
absolutely classic.
I also made, because I was a commuter, I didn't live on campus, so I would have to, and I'm mixed media, so I have a bunch of stuff with me all of the time, and I work large.
Right.
So I built, I got casters from Ace Hardware, and I found this like sheet of plywood. I built like a little ledge on all four corners, and I attached a rope on an eye hook, and I would drag my cart behind me that had all of my stuff for the day, and I'd push my chair with me, and I was just a sight to be seen. But
I
everybody
love
knew,
that.
and he could
I
hear
love
me
that.
rolling
And
down the hall every day.
right. And you know what? Somewhere there was a business student walking by going, oh, that's one of them art students,
Oh yeah.
which is
Oh, I
great,
never left the art
because
building.
no, well, it's a
No.
safe space. If you were to talk to young people or anyone that's starting a creative journey or wants to do, what advice would you give them? What would you say to them?
Well, I have some experience talking to younger people about it, but as you might know, I teach an art therapy program in a nursing home in Bowling Green. I
Hmm.
pioneered that program, so we're only about a year or so into it, and we've had our ups and downs. But the reason that I wanted to start that program is because a lot of people that have reached that age that have been working their whole life and didn't grow up in an era where they were allowed to have a lot of those creative freedoms kind of struggle with, oh, I can't paint, I can't draw a straight line, I would never be able to do any of that. But I believe creating art in any capacity has so many rewarding aspects to it, whether it comes to cognition, physical ability, mental health, anything like that. So I encourage residents who may have never picked up a paintbrush in their life, that have all different kinds of abilities and acuities to come to the classes. And I know the general stigma of residents in nursing homes, like a lot of other facilities just be like, oh, well, we're going to paint these rocks, or we'll paint birdhouses, or some small little kind of undermining craft. And they kind of forego the thought that these are adults. These are still people. They still
Right.
possess the abilities to do things adults can do. They are not children. And I get very upset when people start to infantilize these adults. So in my class, which we used to teach 2 to 3 times a month, every other Monday, and now we're moving to Saturdays, but I wanted to go through the fundamental art processes of different media. So when we first started the classes about a year ago, we hosted kind of like a gallery opening. It was a mock juried show. We have a couple residents that live on that campus that were practicing artists in their lifetime. So we had their family bring in art that they had made, decades prior and leading up to that. And then we also had staff bring in their work, and I put out a call for some of Bowling Green students to bring in their work. And the residents were acting as the jury panel and deciding who got the best of show and blah, 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 blah. But the works that were brought in were all across the board. We had some children's work in there, some people that have never painted before, people that paint every day, sculptures, all things like that, just to show that anybody of any level are free to create, and they should. So in the art classes, I absolutely refused to do like the little niche crafty things. I was not going to do it. So for our
Right.
first
Right.
class, for about 4 months, we worked on oil paintings. And I mean, we did every part of the oil painting. We built our cradles, we gessoed, we toned our surfaces, we set up still lifes. Um, and most of these concepts, half the residents in the class could never even given the thought of trying to do in their lives. And over the course of time that we were working on those paintings and doing like grisaille paintings. So we started in black and white and then learned how to glaze in color, and I would give demos in color theory, and we ran it like a professional classroom. And it really kind of opened some of the residents up. Um, some were pretty hesitant, they wanted to be perfect off the rip, and that was not going to be attainable right away. Um, so there were moments of defeat and sadness. We laughed, we cried, we sang, we were all across the
Right.
board during that class. But by the time that we got through it and we completed these paintings and they were all built on a cradle and hung up in the residence room, you could tell that there was an overwhelming sense of pride and joy that they had creating those and that they learned, and they were excited to have shared in that new experience. And after the oil paintings, we moved on to different media. Uh, so I believe it's possible for anybody to create, whether they have before or not, or if they're scared to. It's just sitting down to start doing something, whether it's just scribbling on a piece of paper, painting something one solid color, just to kind of get your mind open to the idea of wanting to do it.
That's fabulous. As somebody who is approaching the back nine of my life, I guess, keeping my mind active and staying busy. It's one of the reasons I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Jumping into this at the age I am, it's like to keep, and I enjoy the discussion. I want to kind of tie this together as we reach the end here.
Hmm.
And this has been a very deep, fascinating conversation. And I thank you for being so open and sharing with us. What I get from you and what I appreciate from you is your work seems to have an underlying social component that you're always looking to enhance, even though you're not creating it for someone else, so to speak. You talked about your body dysmorphia drawings and making people, they look at it and they feel good about themselves, and introducing a class to an age group of people that may think, like they said, they can't draw a stick figure, or they can't paint, they can't do this because maybe they've been told they can't, or
Hmm.
it was just never presented to them. Um, I to me, that is just, I think it's a gift, and you have that gift, and I'm thankful that there are people like you and that you are out there sharing this gift with people, that creativity is everywhere. It's everything. It's anything to do to expand your mind and try to develop something positive out of it. Is that a safe kind of summation of some of the things that drive you?
Yeah, you summed that up incredibly, better than I ever could, because if you haven't noticed, my brain goes on many rambles, and usually doesn't stay in a consistent flow of thought. Um, but yeah, I have always had the drive to wanna get everybody else into that outlet and see it as an opportunity to have anybody work on themselves, whether they even think that it's going to or not. Like some of the residents in the class had no idea that they were going to become emotional as we carried forward, but I wouldn't change that.
Well, I think you're well on your way to doing it. I really do. Um, it 23, you recognize that, you understand it, you have the direction, you have the drive. And then listen, let me tell you something at my age too. My brain never shuts down. I have 10 squirrel moments a day where I'm just like, oh, and my some days my brain's like scrambled eggs. I wake up at 2 a.m. with this what I call busy brain. And then
Mhm.
I'll lay there for an hour and a half and thinking about everything else that I shouldn't be. And it's like, okay, I gotta sleep. And then I'll think about something else and it drives me insane. So I get it.
It's the
Well,
artist insanity that moves us forward.
it is. It is. And I'm not so sure you don't have to be half nuts to get into some of this stuff that we're doing, but it's okay because everybody I meet, it seems like everybody's half nuts. It's just how we
Mhm.
channel it. And the artists that I talk to, there's a common theme among all of them, but each one is unique. And that's what makes this space so cool. And being part of the art league and being around artists and mixed media and the shows and all the different things again. And I'm going to sum it up and you're right. It's community
Mhm.
and it's interesting to talk to them. I love when I got the one look, somebody looked at me one day and he said, "You don't look like a photographer." And that stuck with me for, I don't know how many years. Cause I'm like,
What are you
I
supposed
didn't
to look
know
like?
what am I supposed to look like, right? I'm a 64-year-old overweight guy with tattoos from the Navy. I get it, but I don't know what and people's perception of what artists are or what creatives are. Just kind of it just kind of makes me laugh. So again, I want to wrap this up. Miquela, I want to thank you for being open and honest and taking the time to share your journey with
Mhm.
us here on the creative frequency. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you having me
So
on. I've had
everybody,
a great time.
good. I'm glad. I hope I can provide a space, and I just want to provide a space for people to express themselves. So with that being said, everybody, thanks for tuning into the creative frequency. Thanks again to our guest Miquela, and you're going to come back next week, and we're going to have another artist and another conversation. Thank you all. Thank you for tuning into the creative frequency. You know what to do. Like, follow, and subscribe. Then join us again for the next episode of The Creative Frequency.